Welcome to Boomer Between the Games, presented by Xfinity. I'm your host, Boomer Esiason. Now, later on, we're going to take a look at that Philadelphia game at the Baltimore Ravens. We'll also take a look at a number of great Week 16 matchups in the NFL. But first, let me introduce our guest for today's show. On the phone, we have Mike Quick. He's a former NFL wide receiver. In fact, he's a 5-time Pro Bowler and now the radio analyst for the Philadelphia Eagles, football on Sports Radio 94.1 WIP. Mike, it's always great to talk to you. Let's get back to exactly what happened with Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles last week against the Baltimore Ravens. I actually like the fact that Doug Peterson went for two to try to win the game at the end of the game. But give me your assessment overall, not only of Carson Wentz's play last week against the Ravens, but where you think his development is as a young quarterback in the NFL today.
Well, I think you couldn't ask for a whole lot more out of Carson Wentz. A better supporting cast, you get more wins with Carson Wentz this season. He's had a lot of trouble with the offensive line staying healthy. He needs a real top receiver on the outside. But his play, specifically his play, I think he's been great. Yeah, he's had some rookie mistakes along the way, but the kid is an outstanding player, Boomer. I think he has everything that it takes to be a top quarterback in this league.
Well, Mike, you saw, the Patriots clinch yet another AFC East title, 8 in a row, for a matter of fact, for Bill Belichick and Tom Brady and company. A great, gritty performance by their defense. Tom Brady not so great, but how about that defensive performance holding the Denver Broncos to 3 points?
You got to give a lot of credit to the defense coordinator and the way they play defense. Boomer, that is just such a smart team, and this time of year, it's when they always seem to play their best football, and it's hard to pick anyone in that conference to beat them.
If there's one team maybe that could go toe-to-toe with them offensively, if it's not the Raiders, maybe it's the Pittsburgh Steelers and their offense, and we'll talk about their game against the Baltimore Ravens coming up in a minute. And then Monday night, the Panthers go into Washington, and they disrupt the Redskins' hopes to get into the playoffs. And Cam Newton looked like the MVP he was last year, but Kirk Cousins really struggled in the passing game against this Panther offense. What did you see on Monday night?
I thought the Panthers kept Kirk Cousins on the run. They forced him into some mistakes, and I thought that was a big key in the game. And, you're playing against the reigning MVP of the league, and I'm sure that he had a lot to say. They have pride there, and they want to win. They just haven't had a good season at all. But they put a lot of pressure on Kirk Cousins, and I thought that might have been the difference in the game.
It certainly was, and Cam Newton finally looked confident again. Previous 4 games, he had completed less than 50% of his passes. He certainly played like the reigning MVP that he was last year in this particular game. Time for our Twitter question of the week, presented by Xfinity. And it comes from @DanielRubens WW. He wants to know, Mike, who is the best wide receiver in the National Football League? #BoomerBTG. For my money, it has to be Odell Beckham Jr. You're a former wide receiver. This guy has done more things in the first 3 years of his career than any wide receiver in NFL history, and he continues to get better each and every week. I know he's mercurial. I know he's a weird personality. But at the end of the day, Antonio Brown, A.J. Green, and Julio Jones are probably that group of next receivers right below him. I don't know how you see it, but I see it as he being the most explosive wide receiver in the NFL today.
Well, there's a group of about 5, and you mentioned most of them, that I just love to watch the guys play that position, the position that I love. But none of them do I like any better than seeing Odell Beckham Jr. do it. I just think he is the best that there is. And it's funny how he makes all these great catches, but to me, the excitement begins once he has the ball in his hands in the open field. I love to watch him run the football.
Hey, if you have a question for us, tweet at us with #BoomerBTG, and maybe we'll use your tweet on the show. All right, time to look ahead to these Week 16 matchups, and there are some huge matchups, and one of the matchups that I'm really looking forward to is the Ravens at the Steelers. The Ravens already beat the Steelers. This was a game where Ben Roethlisberger had come off of injury. He did not look that good, and the Ravens defense basically shut down the Steelers offense. Now, all of a sudden, the Steelers are on a winning streak. Le'Veon Bell is just basically taken over by storm here the last 3 to 4 weeks. Ben Roethlisberger usually plays well at home at Heinz Field. They're very difficult to defend against. This will be physical. You and I both know what these rivalry matchups are all about. These two teams can't stand each other. I think it's great for football when teams like this basically have all or nothing to play for, which is essentially what this game is. The winner will win the AFC North. The other will be out of the playoffs. How do you see it, Mike?
See, I think the schedule makers really set this thing up well. For the end of the season to have matchups like this, Can't wait to see this game. It's going to be one of those black and blue kind of games. And you're right, Le'Veon Bell is really hitting his stride right now. And when they've got that running game going, it just makes things easy for Big Ben. Their defense is playing well. And based on what I saw in the Ravens against the Eagles last week, I'm picking the Steelers in that game.
Yeah, there's no question. I think they're going to be very difficult to deal with at home, especially with the way that the Ravens played against the New England Patriots on Monday night and the way you saw them against the Philadelphia Eagles. How about the Eagles hosting the Giants? Now, we talked about a short week and the troubles that could present for a young quarterback like Carson Wentz. But the thing that I say, Mike, and because these are division games, you got to be really careful if you are a potential playoff team like the Giants are. They have 10 wins. If they win this game, they will then lock up at least the number 5 seed in the NFC playoffs. If they lose this game, there is a chance they could still get knocked out of the playoffs. That's how tedious these things are late in the season. And we saw last week there were a number of teams that got a scare from other divisional foes, and ultimately the Redskins losing to the Carolina Panthers within the conference. So I would think that the Eagles are going to come, and they're going to come hard here against the Giants, especially getting Lane Johnson back. And there's a very good chance that Janoris Jenkins, the All-Pro cornerback for the New York Giants, may not play in this game due to a back injury, but yet nonetheless, you got to be very careful if you are the New York Giants in a game like this.
Well, I think the Eagles have a boost of energy with Lane Johnson back in the lineup. They've gotten some good play out of young offensive linemen, but last week against the best run defense in the National Football League, the Baltimore Ravens, the Eagles were able to pound the football, run the ball on them, and I think that formula would work well with them against the New York Giants. Yep, they've got some big guys in the middle of their defensive front, but I think the Eagles can run the ball on them. I think that's going to help, but they have to be careful of the guy that we mentioned earlier, Odell Beckham Jr., because that, to me, he's the difference maker in a game like this, and he can simply, with one play or two plays, make the difference in the entire football game.
Should be quite the environment there in Philadelphia on Thursday, Mike. We look forward to hearing you on WIP. Have a great week. Thanks for joining us, and catch us next week, everybody, when our guest will be Brian Jones from CBS Sports. Thanks for tuning in to Boomer Between the Games, presented by Xfinity. Xfinity X1 will change the way you experience TV.